Hey kids, welcome to the Far Out Podcast. And normally, after I do that kind of intro statement, I will continue on with my intro where I ask you how you're doing, and then I pretend you ask me how I'm doing, and then there'd be a little more preamble and maybe a clip from a movie or a TV show, and we would just go on our merry way with the show. But this episode, I want it to be a little different because I need to have a real, honest dialogue with you guys. And so we're just going to begin with that. So, kids, gather around, bring it on in, pull up a chair, and get your favorite beverage because we need to have a serious conversation to start things off. Since I last spoke to you, which was January 3rd, by the way, Happy New Year. Hope you're having a good New Year. And that's a good, kind of segue into that because my New Year has not been good. My January has been kicking my butt left, right, and center. And there's just been a bunch of stuff going on, stuff that pertains to my work, to friends, to the bank, just overall, I just feel like my spirits have been kind of low, kind of down in the dumps. And I found this picture on Twitter one day when I was scrolling that I feel perfectly encapsulates how I'm just going throughout 2025 so far. Sorry for the swear, but this is so accurate. It's crazy because this is true. My new year is going to begin in February because January is just it's just beating me up with a bunch of different stuff. And the reason why I even bring this up is not because I want this to be some pity party, nor do I want it to be like all these weird videos you see where people get on camera, get on mic, and they just start crying and they start complaining. It's I do this because when you come to this show, and I mean this, I want this to be a genuine place for genuine discussion and genuine dialogues amongst people. And when I eventually have guests on, they can talk about whatever they want. And I want them to be as real and as honest and as vulnerable with themselves and with me as they feel they can be. I don't want them to ever feel like they have to talk through a filter, nor do I ever want to feel that way for myself. I never want to give you guys the edited, clean version of this. Yes, I do edit this, but not in terms of the vocal content so much. It's usually splicing in pictures or videos or wacky transitions, but very rarely have I ever deliberately removed part of my speech only because I fumble over a word or just start rambling, just very, very rarely. I think only once have I ever gone in and been like, yep, I should take out those 5 seconds. But yeah, I just want this to be honest and I want this to be real. And the reason why I bring this up is because this has informed some of the topics on today's show. This is why I'm giving you this foundation because one of the things that we're going to talk about, the thing I want to start the show with, is that despite me getting beat down on in life throughout January, that has led me to some interesting discoveries. I am a man of faith. I'm a man of Christ. I believe in his tenets, in his way of life in heaven and in hell, and in what we do in life and how that impacts our ultimate destination regarding salvation or damnation. So I'm a Christian. I really am. I'm a Christian. I'm a conservative, and I don't want to ever hide that about myself. And while my spirits have been low throughout January, it hasn't been entirely down in the dumps. There's been some good, but there's also been a lot of time for reflection and a lot of time for diving into different pieces of information. Sadly, some people, when they go through dry spells in life, they consult drugs, they drink heavily, maybe they're more angry, they get more frustrated. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm not. I mean, I think anyone who knows me knows that I can have a short temper, that I can take things very personally. But what I have done throughout January is I've been consulting scripture a lot, and this is what I want to talk about. This is what I want to start the show with. And I'm going to give a shout out to the Bible Project. They are a group on YouTube that makes incredible um, videos and analysis on scripture. They have a podcast as well. I think they're just tremendous. And in the readings I've been doing throughout the Bible, I've been listening to them as well. And so we've been going through Genesis together. So I'm going to link down in the description below to them and to the videos specifically that I've been engaging with as well. But as I've been jumping around scripture, they've been kind of channeling me into this interesting area for reading to help me, just get through January. The scripture I've been going through hasn't really pertained to my issues so much. It's more just like I found this interesting to the point to where I started. The more I read, the more I listened, the more I consumed about this. I just started writing notes, and I went, okay, I'm going to talk about this on the podcast. So it's not like my spirits are down, and this scripture has to do with lifting spirits up. It's not like that. It's almost like you had a bad day at work on Monday, you get off Monday, you watch a documentary on lions, and then on Tuesday you go back into work, and all you want to do is talk about lions. Like it's like that. And yeah, so this we're going to talk about this scripture I've been going through, and this has been in conjunction with the book of Genesis, and this has to do with what's described as the day of the Lord. And throughout the Bible, the day of the Lord, air quotes around that, is described in several different ways. One has to do with the common understanding that this refers to a person's final judgment, as in like when we die, and this also has to do with the end times from the book of Revelation. And that's true. That's very true. But the phrase "day of the Lord" doesn't refer to just the final judgment. It also refers to a central theme throughout Scripture about how God is at work throughout history to confront collective human evil. And this has to do with the examination of former societies, empires, and so on. And this all stems from uh, the path that. And let me offer a friendly reminder here that history doesn't necessarily repeat, but it rhymes, and we'll get more into that later. But yes, this all comes from Genesis that I've been exploring here. And yes, we're going to talk about history and the various day of the Lord that happen throughout Scripture. So anyway, moving on here. By the way, if you listen to this podcast long enough, you'll hear me mention Joe Rogan and how he's like my primary inspiration for this show. And what does Joe Rogan do? Well, he drinks, he smokes cigars, and he often talks about religion. So that's what I'm doing tonight. No cigars, for myself, but I am currently having an alcoholic beverage. I'm having some scotch here, and I'm talking about Christ. So maybe I'm getting closer to Joe Rogan than I initially thought I would. But you know what? It's not necessarily a bad thing. So anyway, moving forward, you know, I think when it comes to talking about someone's relationship with the Lord, odds are that if you ask someone about that relationship, you'll get a complicated answer. They'll say something like, "I did when I was young. I had a relationship with him when I was young, but I grew out of it." Or, "I believe in a higher power, but I don't know what it is." And I think that this trend stems from people usually having an education on God that's a mile wide, but an inch deep. And because of that, so many people have hang-ups uh, as a result. And a very common one is questioning God's lack of protection for those that are good, quote, are good and do good, and the lack of accountability for those that are, quote, evil. And rightfully so. That is something that if you've ever been to church and you listen to what's preached in church and then you look at the world, you think it doesn't line up with how we're taught about the Lord sometimes. The world is a messed up place. You don't need to look for evidence of that. But I want to offer this other friendly reminder that just because the world is a messed up place, that doesn't mean that God is idle. And when we look at how God confronts evil, we can see that he doesn't let it endure for forever, and that he also brings liberation and redemption for the oppressed people, wherever they are, whenever that might be. Uh, Despite it being a tacky bumper sticker, it's true. He does put the save in Savior. Excuse me while I take a drink here. That is Scotch with root beer, Barks root beer, to be exact. Anyway, as I previously hinted, in a way, we're in the middle of history. And we can use the language of the past to inform us about our own future because we're constantly making history. When God plays his hand and evil falls, the world changes as a result. And this is a linear progression that eventually gets humanity to the end of time as we know it, in the beginning of a new age with new creation. And you read throughout Scripture that that's coming, that there is a beginning, a middle, and an end, as I previously mentioned off the top here. But all these points throughout history that are all intertwined. You got the rise and fall of Egypt, the rise and fall of Babel or Babylon, and that's what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. You got the rise and fall of Rome, and so many others that offer us valuable lessons and markers to prepare us for our own future and what that might bring. But to prepare in life for an adversary, you must first understand them. And so when we're talking about evil, we have to ask ourselves, where did evil come from, and why does God even have to confront it to begin with? And really, when it comes to evil, it began with, quote, the fall. But it may not be the fall that you're thinking of. You're probably thinking of the one where Adam and Eve eat of the forbidden fruit, get kicked out of paradise, and this is an inception point that quickly causes history to roll downhill into a flaming pile of garbage. But that's not the one I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is other stuff that happens throughout the book of Genesis that I've been reading from, and like I said, listening about with the Bible Project. Again, big shout out to them. Again, everything I have been saying and I'm going to say, it's very much like a 60-40% split in their favor of the content here. They really helped me frame things, and there were definitely lifts I took from their video. And I was like, I'm gonna take this, sir, and just use it to contain my own feelings on this. So a big shout out to them, as they also talked about Genesis and all that stuff. Okay, so anyway, got to get back to my notes here. So from there, from that point, throughout the book of Genesis, we have the story of Cain and Abel, of Noah and the flood, and this overall growing sense that the world is becoming more and more corrupt. And this culminates, I feel, in the Tower of Babel. And by the way, just for clarification, when I previously mentioned it, Babel and Babylon are the same place. Babel is Hebrew, Babylon is Greek, and so I may use those titles interchangeably depending on the context of what I'm discussing. But for right now, I will use Babel since I'm talking about the Tower of Babel. And Babel itself offers a rearview mirror, so to speak, to examine what happens to humans when they exalt themselves, they define good and evil by themselves, and how that leads to violence. Okay. So, in the city of Babel, which you can read about in the book of Genesis, all the people are speaking one unified language. So there's no English, there's no Spanish, Japanese, so on and so forth. And because of this collectivism that they have, the people build a tower that is described as, quote, going up to the heavens. So it's quite tall, it's quite massive, and they construct this tower from pride. A pride that has to do with this sense of authority and arrogance and wanting to enter God's domain, which is how they view it, physically up high. Okay, so they have this huge tower. And pride in the tower's construction is a great example of wordplay, because we all know that pride comes before the fall, which I previously mentioned. But up, cha. Hit that rim shot there. Okay, so with the tower, the Lord puts a stop to their efforts and disperses them from the city, and this causes the confusion of our languages. The Lord, quote, confused the language of all the earth, meaning that we no longer have a unified language, and this is how we get the many languages that are now prevalent throughout the earth today. It stems from the Tower of Babel, all these people speaking one language. They build this tower, the city of Babel builds this tower to try to exalt themselves. Again, it's from pride. The Lord puts a stop to it. And we go on from there. And it's funny, too, because this is also where we get the definition of the word Babel, which means to speak in a confused mixture of sounds and voices. So just Just a funny little history fact there. Anyway, moving on. And while the tower itself displeased the Lord, at the time of its construction and completion, it was actually a technical marvel by those standards. It was built with a type of brick that excelled in uniformity, much like the language, meaning that all the bricks fit together with ease and there wasn't much need for additional geometry required. And so the city of Babel were, I believe, on the cutting edge of construction at that time. And when you have that kind of development happening with your people, you can use it to build great things or you can use it to build improper things. And Babel used their constructive abilities for improper things. And as I mentioned, history, as we know it, is a great teacher. And I think that this story in Genesis can offer us a lot of profound lessons about human progress and how we should use the tools both provided by the earth and the ones we make from the earth. Really, ultimately, when it comes down to this stuff, it's a question of morality, if you think about it. To quote Jurassic Park, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. And just because we can do something doesn't mean we always should do something. And I think that's a big point. And I think that this also has to do with the dilemma that we face when we have free will. And I mean that is a huge topic. That is a can of worms in of itself. We're not going to get fully into that on this episode. Maybe someday I'll dive even deeper into scripture than I already am now. But when it comes to free will and that dilemma of doing things and not doing other things, this is how I view it. Freedom doesn't give you the right to do whatever you want to do. It gives you the right to do what you ought to do. And this continues to make the lessons from Babel and Genesis relevant today because we are still progressing today as humans. Let me think for a minute. Do I want to get into this now? I could keep going on this because there's a lot of side streets I could take, but let me think about this for a moment because we'd have to go another layer deep. But you know what? We're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. Kids, you don't go to a buffet for a light lunch, and you certainly don't come to the Far Out podcast for a light discussion, especially when it comes to something as heavy and as real as this. So let me take another drink here, and then we'll continue onward. Good stuff there. Okay, so where was I? Check my notes here. Okay, let me see. How do I want to attack this? Okay, I got it. Okay. All right, bear with me. Kids, pay attention. Okay, let me try and break this down in this way. Is the invention of the phone a morally bad thing? No. The phone connects the world, enables us to call for help, and so on and so forth. Now, the evolution of the phone is up for debate because of those evolutions, those different iterations. We now have constant access to the internet, and through that, we can engage with whatever we want, wherever we want, and at any age, and that can have horrible ramifications for us. I mean, just think about that and all the stories we hear about how horrible it is when these kids have unrestricted internet access. Just again, real sad stuff there. But we're not going to focus on that too deep. But okay, anyway, now let's look at medicine. Is medicine morally bad? No, of course it's not. But modern medicine, while incredibly beneficial, can get extreme. And one way it's become really, really extreme is that we are now getting into gene editing. And I think that topic alone requires a healthy amount of nuance. So, excuse me, just burped. So, keeping it with Genesis here, the Lord told us to subdue the earth. And that in of itself was a blessing. And what we do with that blessing, with that allowance in life, is important. God's definition of good and evil are the boundaries. And I think that we, as people, have a duty to progress in ways that A, don't remove God from our lives, and B, don't let us think we can become God. And you look at gene editing, for example, and on one hand, you have literally the next evolution of humanity, the notion that we can go into a human before they are born and remove diseases. And on the other hand, we can become our own creators. We can artificially engineer life, and then everything becomes like freaking Blade Runner and our own version of replicants. And, that's not good. So there's that as well. More human than human is our motto, to quote that film. But yeah, not good. But then you can go another layer deep, and you have to ask yourself if a version of this type of playing God has already been happening, and if gene editing is merely just the next evolution of an evolution. So, again, to be real, to be honest, to be vulnerable, raw, whatever word you want to use for it, full disclosure, I have cerebral palsy. Now, my case of CP isn't bad. My surgeon, whose name is Dr. Milky, yes, that's his real name, like Milky Way, the candy bar. Dr. Milky, shout out Dr. Milky. He said that he graded cerebral palsy on a scale of 1 to 5. And I've used this scale for the rest of my life. 1 meaning you're pretty independent, but may still need some assistance with everyday stuff. And 5 being you're permanently in a wheelchair and you need constant care for everything. And it's just not really a great life, sadly. And for myself, for where I fall on that scale, my doctor told me that I was on a zero point 0.5 scale, and or I was on a point 0.5 on that scale, so I was less than 1, so I was very good. And Dr. Milky, my surgeon, I'm very thankful for him. I'm very fortunate that modern medicine has offered me services to be able to live a full life despite my case of cerebral palsy. And as I said, I needed surgeries. And in the case of my surgeries, uh, the doctors, Dr. Milky, he had to go in and rework my legs. And because of this, I can run, jump, climb, swim, do everything. I love playing disc golf. I can drive. I mean, it's great. But I also have to ask myself this question too: is their work, is his work, a version of playing God as well? And I've asked myself this question as I was reading Genesis and going through the Bible Project. And I think the best answer I can provide is that in the context of humanity, in the context of technology, in the context that we've been talking about with Babel, we can use technology to either advance the kingdom of God or we can use it to advance the kingdom of Babel. And what is more Christ-like than to help someone who can simply not help themselves? Now, of course, that answer is incredibly biased because I'm referencing my own life here, and I certainly don't want to give up the surgeries I've had, the improvements I've had, but in a way or in ways, I think it's also true that modern medicine is the answer to someone's prayer. And I know that throughout my surgeries when I was younger, I had many people praying for me. And the fact that I was able to get the services I did uh, enabled me to live a full life, and I'm incredibly thankful. And beyond that as well, simply put, hope springs eternal in the Lord. The story of Christ is one of optimism, I feel. And I choose to be an optimist because I feel that there's a moral bend towards it. I really truly believe that. So even now, as I'm going through this dry spell in my life where things just aren't working out in any way, I still try to be an optimist because Christ has provided for me so much already. The idea that I can't go through a little bit of a dry spell in my life is it's crazy. And of course, if you read Scripture, despite me saying I have a optimistic, you know, look at life. If you read scripture, you'll know it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. The whole darn world is going to go to hell in a handbasket. But the story does ultimately have a happy ending for those that follow him and believe. And when it comes to life, who doesn't want a happy ending? And so I hope that whatever that was, whatever this part of the show was, I hope it was concise. I hope it was clear. I hope it was honest. I hope it was pure. I hope you gained information out of it because I was reading Genesis and I was listening to the Bible Project when I didn't have access to Scripture, and I just found everything I was absorbing to be really nutritious for my life, and I wanted to share that with you. And not everyone is spiritual. There are those that have different faiths who believe different things, and then there are those who don't believe anything. And I hope that whoever you are, that you didn't skip this. I hope that if you check the timestamps in the video's description, that however long this portion is, you don't skip it. Or I hope that even if you did, eventually you'll go back at some point. At the very least, I hope you had open ears with this, which I know is a lot to ask, because if I was listening to a podcast and one of the hosts started talking about Hinduism, I don't know if I'd listen. So I don't blame anyone for who kind of tunes out here, but again, um, I I love podcasting. I'm very late to the game, but I love the game. I want to keep playing the game, and I want to use this platform to talk about whatever I feel is in my mind, on my heart, and yeah. So anyway, I appreciate the platform. And as always, I want to thank you for listening. And by no means is it the end of the show. This was just the beginning. We're going to get back into the more regularly scheduled programs of the show, talking about movies and TV. But yeah, I just wanted to take some time off the top to talk about that and to just give you an update um, on my life. Not that I really feel that you need one and all that stuff, but again, if I want my guests to act honest and vulnerable, then I have to be as well. And I thank you for listening. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Creature Commandos, the thing that I absolutely love without a doubt, and is just incredible television. Not, in my opinion. Sorry to everyone who worked on that. They had their season finale. Uh, thank goodness. I'm glad that's over. which which is a lot for me to say because I'm this super nerd, and this is the start of DC's new universe. But as I've said, there are previous weeks of the show. Uh, this this show, this animated series, was just bananas to me. Didn't make sense for a first step. I don't know how it fits. I don't know what their plan is. I can't show it to my friends or to my mom because it's too adult and yada yada. But along the way, there were some nuggets that I thought were nice and were interesting and made me happy and giddy in the whole deal. I mean, last week I talked about how they mentioned Batman and I did like 30 minutes on Batman. Um, but yeah, in this episode in the season finale, they mentioned Star City, which is the home of Green Arrow. So it's cool to have at least a passing mention of him because Green Arrow is awesome. The TV show on the CW, which was simply just titled Arrow, incredible stuff. If you haven't watched that, you should. But it's funny because that was really the best part of Creature Commandos. It wasn't actually the show itself. It wasn't its own narrative. It was all the Easter eggs that you could find throughout the series. It was mentions of Superman and Wonder Woman and Metropolis and Green Arrow and Batman and it was all the other stuff that kept me watching. It wasn't so much the actual plot of the characters that we follow, which again is that's a big red flag for a series. The fact that you know everything else is interesting, but not the actual meat itself. It's all the sides on the plate. So if you like Creature Commandos, I mean, God bless you. But it just wasn't for me. And as I said in a previous episode, they were really smart over there at DC to put this out first because they knew it was meat on the hook to get people interested. Because again, it's their first thing ever in this new universe that they're starting, which follows up with Superman this July. So they knew they were going to get eyes on it out of pure curiosity alone, and they did. They got mine. But yeah, not great in my opinion. I give it, like 30 out of 100. 3 out of 10. Floating D plus to C minus. I hear it's getting a season 2, but I don't know if I'll watch it because it just really wasn't my cup of tea. And by that point, we'll have plenty of other DC stuff under our belt. So yeah, Creature Commandos. Thank you, I think, for introducing the new DC universe, but I'm not sad to see you go. All right. Anyway, moving on. Now we're going to talk about some stuff that I did like and some stuff that's coming up that I know I will like. And one of the things I want to talk about is the season 3 of the TV show Reacher. They dropped a new trailer for that.
I've never been so jealous of a fork in my life. You have any thoughts on dessert?
And the new season, the 3rd season, comes out in February of this year, so we don't have that long to wait at all. I mean, that is coming fast and hard very soon. And if you haven't checked out Reacher yet on Amazon Prime, I highly recommend you do. I think Reacher's really, really good and really fun. It is simply this huge, hulking beast of a man who has military training, and while he loves to be a recluse and not get involved in a whole lot of people's stuff and business, he will not turn away when someone needs help. And it is just this big hulking dude with muscles the size of my torso, beating up bad guys, and it's amazing. By the way, as I mentioned in last week, and I'll reiterate, the guy that plays Reacher, Mr. Jack Reacher, his name is Alan Richardson. He's so big and buff and strong that he's been floated around to play Batman at some point. So yeah, if you want to watch perhaps a proto Batman kick bad guys all day long without a suit on, please go watch Reacher. I think it's just amazing. And yeah, it's a really good show. I'm really happy it's coming back for its 3rd season. It's already been renewed for a 4th, so we're gonna have plenty of Reacher, coming onto our TV screens in no time at all. But yeah, the new trailer for the 3rd season just dropped, and yeah, and real quick, just to talk about the trailer, they show the new bad guy that Reacher's gonna fight, and I just described Reacher as this huge hulking dude who could play Batman, which is all true. But in the 3rd season, they show off this other guy that they have, this heavy, this bad guy who's gonna take Reacher to task, and he's massive. He stands head and shoulders over Reacher, and I didn't know a human being could get that big, but they might have grown this guy in a lab. But boy, yeah, you take a guy as big and mean as Reacher, and you make his adversary someone who's even bigger and meaner. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. So that looks pretty darn good. Reacher season 3 coming to Amazon Prime in February, with the 2 seasons already available. I highly recommend.
Bench press proves nothing. Elbow on the pad. Rickard and I fought. Sorry, hand slipped.
Okay. Speaking of TV, that I highly recommend and cannot get enough of, and you've heard me talk about it numerous times, is The Agency.
What is your question, Doctor?
You think it's possible that you may have something to hide?
Lie to everyone. Pretend to be someone you're not. Risk your life on a daily basis. No glamour. No exploding watch. I believe there's one type of agent. The insane.
And it's funny. I dropped the last episode of the podcast on January 3rd, which was a Thursday, and every episode of The Agency comes out on a Friday. So I missed talking about episode 7 of The Agency on the last episode of the podcast. So now this week on this episode, we're going to talk about 2 installments of The Agency with episode 7 and 8. And this show continues to floor me in every possible way. And if you're not watching it, please do yourself a favor and watch it, so then we can talk about it. But yeah, as I've said numerous times, this show is very real, uh, and clearly has great advisors for everything from tactics to geopolitical stuff, because they are pulling some very real world stuff that makes the show all that more juicy, all that more real, all that more kind of unsettling to watch, but in an interesting way. And I think it's just great. And that's not even including the little bits of action and the great acting and so on and so forth. But anyway, in episode 7, this has to do with some, as we've talked about in previous episodes, this has to do with, or part of the show has to do with Russia operating in Ukraine and how that's a global conflict and it pulls in the U.S. and the U.S. lost an operative in Ukraine. Okay, whatever. So in this episode, the CIA gets word of this group of soldiers working on behalf of the Russians called the Valhalla Group. Valhalla, like the map from Halo 3. And I think that the Valhalla Group of troops is simply a rename of the Wagner Group, the real life Russian mercenary group, Wagner Group, as it's pronounced, that was fighting in Ukraine on behalf of Russia. And just to give you a little bit of a background history, Russia gravely underestimated the resolve of Ukraine. They've been throwing a lot of their troops into a meat grinder over there, and so they've been depleting soldiers in their army. And what they did is that Russia started to empty out their prisons, forced people to fight on their behalf, and they also took volunteers, quote, volunteers, from these mercenary groups to form one mercenary group called the Wagner Group, which is, from what I know, it's like a real life suicide squad. I mean, these people just throw themselves at the enemies. They do anything necessary. They're real, just the bad of the bad, and all that stuff. And suspiciously, uh, they were flying in an aircraft carrier, um, going somewhere after a couple of successful missions, and their plane blew up, killing all of them, or perhaps most of them at least. This is real history here, and it was rumored to believe that Russia shot them down because Russia didn't really know how to sever ties with this group, and they were getting too extreme, even for Russia during the war there. And so Russia went, yeah, where are they? Oh, they're all in that flying tin can, like over the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, let's just park a missile under their butt and take care of that. So that's supposedly what went down. I mean, their deaths were real. Like, all the high-ranking officials of the Wagner Group did die in an airplane crash. Why they all chose to get on one single airplane, uh, I'll never know, because that's just poor tactics there. But anyway, I'm getting back to the agency. Um, yeah, so they introduced this group called the Valhalla Group, which I believe is just a rename of the Wagner Group fighting for Russia, because again, this show is very real, talks about real conflicts, hence why they're talking about Russia and Ukraine. And in the show, it talks about how the Valhalla Group, the Valhalla troops, they were part of the annexation of Crimea. They're formed outside of the traditional army. Again, that tracks with Wagner, highly aggressive. That tracks, and they kill prisoners with sledgehammers. This is the part to where I was like, okay, as I've said before, someone somewhere in this show is doing the freaking homework, because if you're someone like me who uh, loves history and loves to examine war and all its facets, uh, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine is crazy to look at. There's horrific videos and images, and then there's also you're watching two countries develop new battle tactics in real time. And so, from a historical, informational perspective, it's interesting to look at. But if you go down the rabbit holes, down the wells, like I have on a few occasions, you can find some really screwed up information, some really gut churning stuff here. And as I said, the Wagner Group are a band of mercenaries. They kill indiscriminately. They're held together by duct tape and all that stuff, or at least they were. And what they did, what they were known for, is that prisoners, rebels inside their ranks, anyone they didn't like, if they got their hands on you, what they would do is they would take the people that they want to kill and they would kill them with sledgehammers. They would beat them to death with a sledgehammer. And they would film this and record this and they would put it out on the internet saying, "We are the Wagner Group, join us and have a good time." And I've not seen the videos. I know where the videos exist. It's on the app Telegram, which is like the wild, wild west of the internet. But I've seen the kinds of pictures you'll see like on an ABC News feed, where it's the grainy GoPro shot, and then they do another shot of the sledgehammer, but you never see it actually swing. You never see it getting pulverized, and all that stuff. But I've been on Telegram a little bit. I've seen some stuff I wish I shouldn't have, and I'll just say that that sledgehammering stuff is real. That's what they do. So the fact that the show The Agency went out of its way to describe this mercenary group of soldiers fighting for Russia and decided to drop the fact that they use sledgehammers as a form of execution. Again, they got good tech advisors. They got good geopolitical advisors. It's crazy. I want to know who their advisors are on this show. I need to find him or her and talk to them. I need to get them on the podcast. I mean, this would be a once in a lifetime get because they're taking real stuff and putting it into really good television, and they're watering it down. I don't mean that in a bad way, but they're watering it down. They're making it tasteful enough to give it to us in a fictional TV show that feels so real. It's crazy. Mr. or Mrs. Agency Tech Advisor, if you're watching, and I know that you are, if we ever get to meet, we ever get to talk, and if we ever go out to a bar together to do said talking, you're gonna drink for free. I'm just telling you right now. If you want to have a fun night out on someone else's bill, find me so I can talk to you endlessly about the agency and how you're able to get so much stuff into such a good TV show. But anyway, moving on with the agency here. In episode 7, it involves the U.S. trying to get their operative back, who, as I've said in previous weeks, they have this operative in Ukraine who gets captured by the Russians operating in Ukraine, so he's being held behind enemy lines, on the front lines, and whatever. And and how Russia intends to send this captured operative back to the Kremlin to do who knows what they're going to do with him. Nothing good, surely. So the U.S. wants their man back, rightfully so. So the U.S. wants to send a man to Ukraine to infiltrate the Russians there, and get close to a certain general who is holding the U.S. operative, and get the operative out. And this idea isn't it's not coded with this super secret elite spy stuff. Oh no, 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 no. The U.S. has a man who is native to Russia, so he speaks fluent Russian and has a Russian accent, the whole deal. Yet this man is stationed in London at the Russian consulate where this show takes place here, and they want their guy to essentially go to Ukraine, volunteer in the Russian army, go up to the general in it of interest, and say something to the effect of, "Hi, yes, excuse me, I would like to join your cause. Sorry, I'm late. And if it's not too much of a bother, could you please direct me to the front lines, specifically where you are holding the prisoners, and I'll just be on my way." And that's what the U.S. wants this Russian asset to do, who is living comfortably um, in London. Well, not so comfortably, but you have to watch the show to get that part. Um, but the Russian guy is like, screw that crap. He's like, I'm here, I'm safe, the food's good, the healthcare's even better. I'm not going to Ukraine. I'm certainly not infiltrating the Russians, and I'm certainly not getting to the front lines. You can stop all that conversation right now. And the U.S. in response is like, okay, here's the deal, because you're one of our operatives, so you have to listen to us. You do this for us, and we'll sweeten the deal for you. We'll get your entire family U.S. citizenship, and if you don't do this for us, we're gonna back channel information to the Russians, outing you as someone who has ties to the CIA, essentially putting you and your family on an international hit list. Uh, the U.S. is effectively uh, threatening its operatives to do what they want in this theater of war, which again is just crazy, and it's really good television, and I can't recommend it enough. So anyway, the guy reluctantly he takes the deal, because what else is he gonna do? What other choice does he have? So he goes to Ukraine as instructed. He does infiltrate. He infiltrates the Russians, and the Russians then discover him. They figure out he's not legit, but they don't kill him. They pretty much just limit his access so that they can see what they can get out of this U.S. piece of meat that they now have tied to a string. So they don't pull him into a room and say, "We know you're a spy." They're like, "Oh yeah, come on in, join our ranks." But you can't go that way. You can't go to the prisoners. We're gonna send you over here. So they know he's not legit. So they're purposely keeping him on a string though to see how much they can get out of this. Which is crazy. So back at the CIA, uh, they're like, "Fudge, that didn't work out. Our guy didn't get as far in as we need him to, and all that stuff." And then they're talking to their man, and they're like, "What did you learn while you're over there? What did you observe? Did you get anything good worth of intel?" And the guy is like, he has three. The general has three people who are always around him. It's a bodyguard, some other dude, I can't remember. And then they have the secretary. He has the secretary, this female secretary, and the CIA. They're like, yes, the secretary. If we can flip her, she'll get us information. Okay. So again, this is freaking crazy, and this is just a part. This is just a part of the show. I mean, because this has to do with you've got China making a play in Sudan, you've got the rookie female operative trying to get into Tehran, and then you got the stuff going on in Ukraine. It's just crazy. It's crazy. So the CIA now has a backup plan where they plan to flip this secretary to get information on the Russian general. And while they're wargaming this plan, they have someone uh, say, "Okay, how do we guarantee her safety? What do we do if we do flip her? She decides to work for us, but she gets nabbed. She gets outed. What do we do?" And the CIA is like, "Nothing. What can we do? What can we possibly do to help her?" And so you're like, dang, like this show is heavy and real and serious, and so yada yada. And so very similar to the first Russian guy, um, they get in contact with the secretary. They threaten her, and they say, "Do this for us. If you don't, we're gonna send your boss, the general, fake information that you've been communicating with us for weeks, putting you under his thumb, and he's gonna just squash you like a bug." And so the girl is like, the secretary's like, "Okay, I'll do it." Spoiler: she gets outed. She gets found out, and they kill her. And all that stuff. And again, this is just a part of the show. And once again, the CIA is like, that didn't work. We're down two people now. We have no idea where our operative is. The first operative we were trying to get, and then we've got one dead and another guy just stuck in Ukraine. Anyway, let's figure out another plan here. So anyway, this moves on to episode 8, which is the last one I watched, and yeah, this has to do with China making a play in Sudan, which is a very real conflict, which is a China rising is a very real conflict itself for the rest of the world, specifically for the U.S. and whatnot. And there are these meetings happening in London between Sudan officials, Chinese officials, so on and so forth. And the whole time, the U.S. is now playing catch up, and you have these guys in the CIA who are like, how did China possibly get this one over us? How is that possible? How are they so far ahead on this one? And some people in the room are like, this one? They're like, China, like, is ruling the roost right now, which is very true, in a very real world sense. The U.S. is a superpower, but boy, China's our primary adversary. There's no doubt about it. Um, so yeah. So anyway, they're talking about these ongoing meetings between these nations and about how China's going to keep encroaching on Sudan and how that's going to involve the Suez Canal and that'll bolster the Chinese Navy and other parts of the world. And it's just going on and going on and going on. And then what you have is that you've got the U.S. being hopelessly outmatched here in terms of this chess game going on. So they're, like I said, they're playing catch up, and so they call their friends in London because again, this whole show was set in at the U.S. Um, CIA branch based in London here, and they call up their friends in the UK, and they're like, hey, we have word of these meetings going on here in your backyard that are going to impact everything in the world. Uh, can you give us some support on this? And the guy that they send the guy that they sent to talk on London's behalf, he's like, absolutely not. He's like, China's been eating our lunch for decades. He's like, there's nothing we can do. And he says this in the show. He's like, this is your game now. He's like, this is the U.S. versus China now. And the line he says in the show is that all London can do now is blow on your dice and wish you good luck as you play the game. And it was like, dang, if that ain't poking at a sad truth about how China has its grubby mitts in many countries, even the biggest countries, including the U.S., and how you know this explains how a rising China has not been, you know, effectively. No one's really trying to stop this, and this has to do with the ongoing political stuff happening in Taiwan, how China wants to take over Taiwan, and the whole world is like, hey, stop that. Will we stop if you do it? Maybe we will. I don't know. Maybe we will. Um, if you've known me for any amount of time now, I think what U.S. should do is they should put an armored brigade in Taiwan. They should put a big whole military U.S. military parade going on there in Taiwan to make China ease off a little bit. Hopefully that'll happen under this new um, presidential administration we have here in the U.S. But who knows? Again, this is a very real thing being talked about in this show here, and then you have this operative then coming from Beijing who knows that the U.S. is now aware of the talks happening between China and Sudan, and this operative from Beijing comes in, meets with ambassadors from the CIA, and says, "Hey, we know that you know that we're doing some stuff, and we know that you don't like it. So here's the plan." And this is China speaking. Is that they want the UK and the US to back off to essentially let these talks happen, and in exchange, they will provide information about operatives that have infiltrated parts of the US. And they talk about how there are Russian assets in the energy department of the US. The guy from Beijing pulls out a flash drive and says, let us go about our business. We'll give you this information. You have to you have to effectively do nothing. And we'll tell you how much you're being infiltrated and where you can pick up a few of the pieces. And the CIA reluctantly goes, okay, okay. And so now on the show, these talks are going to continue. The efforts between China and Sudan are going to continue on. And the US and the UK are going to hold their tongues in exchange to get pieces of information, which again I feel is a very real thing that could and probably is happening throughout the world. And again, to show the agency, they know their stuff. They know their stuff. And then to top it off, at the very end of the episode, as the guy from Beijing, the China operative, after he drops off the flash drive, he's leaving. He's tailed by the guy we've been following, our U.S. operative, played by Michael Fassbender, the main dude, and they have a knife fight in in a parking garage. And the best part about this knife fight is that there's nothing flashy, there's nothing cool. It's not like they're throwing the knives at each other. What they're doing is that the guy from Beijing takes out the knife and he's like, "Dude," he's like, I have diplomatic immunity for anything I do here." He's like, "So I could kill you, and the most I'll do is get a slap on the wrist." And our U.S. guy, Michael Fassbender, he's like, "Okay, bring it on." They have this knife fight, and the first move that the Beijing guy does, the guy from Beijing, the first move he does, that's the best part of the whole thing because he has this knife, and his first move isn't a kill shot. It's not going for the jugular, literally and metaphorically. His first move in this fight is a fake. The first move he does is a fake, and then the second and the third blows, those are what's he's going for the lethal ones there. Yeah, so it's the first one is meant to get our U.S. guy's hands distracted so then he can leave other parts of his body open. And yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh, it's like that's good. Whoever had that foresight to do that kind of training, that's good. Because yeah, you're not gonna go at it like freaking, you know, you're not gonna go at it like a serial killer from those Halloween movies. You're just hacking and slashing. No, you're gonna go for real precise. Try to get fakes. You're not necessarily gonna go for kill shots. You're just gonna wound, inflict damage, get your target to be slower, lose blood, be injured, and yeah, that makes the knife fight really visceral, I'd say, and it's good. So yeah, so you're all caught up on the agency if you listen to this show. But again, I recommend that you watch it. It's just tremendous, continues to be tremendous, and yeah, season 2 is coming. I believe that there's 10 episodes in the total of the first season, meaning there's only 2 left, which are very sad, which is very sad. But I tell you what, after this show ends, after this season ends, in between seasons, I'm gonna go back and rewatch it. I think it's that good. I really do. And yeah, so I recommend you get on the agency on Paramount Plus, Paramount Plus, because it's just that gosh darn good. Okay, moving on. Excuse me here while I take another drink. Good stuff there. Okay, since we are in a new year now, 2025, that means I can talk about 2024 as a year in review type thing. And I'm going to talk about some of the movies I watched in 2024, and I'm going to give you a top 10 list. Whenever I watch a movie, I add it to a list, I catalog them all, I keep track, and I rank them as the year goes on. And in 2024, I watched 141 movies.
What are you calling this task force?
141.
Yes, you heard that right. 141. That's a lot. I know. But I'm a huge film fan. Most people get off of work, maybe they kick off their shoes, watch an episode of TV or watch, some sport event, whatever. Me, after work, I normally will watch a whole movie, or I'll finish a movie I started the last night, or I'll start one I'm going to finish the next night. It's kind of what I do. But I'm going to give you my top 10. My top 10 films I watched in 2024. And these aren't all necessarily 2024 releases. Some of them are, but the majority are not. These are just movies that I happened to watch in the calendar year of 2024. And I'm going to talk about them. And I'm just going to give this disclaimer off the top, too. What I would love to do with this show, with this part of the show specifically, is that every film I talk about, I want to include a clip of the show to give some context for it. But YouTube is an interesting place because actually in last week's episode where I talked about Supergirl and Troy and Oppenheimer and all that stuff, um, I had clips prepared for every part of that show, and I included clips in every part of that show initially. I edited, I put it together, I uploaded to YouTube, and YouTube flagged some of the clips, but not all of them, which is very interesting because if you upload to YouTube, like I do, where you want to include someone else's media, YouTube as a check system, it essentially watches the video and it'll give you one of two things or one of three things. It'll say no copyright content is found, you're good, or it'll say copyright content is found, yet it's still good, which I've been getting with most of the episodes I put up. And then the last one I did, it's a copyright content found. Some of it good, some of it not good. It red flags it, and when I get red flagged for that, it can mean anything from you can't monetize your video, which is fine for me, or it goes so far as like it won't be searchable, it won't be viewable, which is what I got hit with in the last week. And so, like for example, the clips I had to remove were from the movie Troy and Oppenheimer, and there was one other one. Oh, the Bike Riders. I wanted to include a clip from the movie The Bike Riders, which was actually going to be the opening clip to that show, and then I put in a clip of Spider-Man instead, which is fine. It's a good clip, but whatever. Um, but it's interesting how the Spider-Man clip wasn't flagged, but the Bike Riders was, and the clip from Aquaman wasn't flagged, yet Oppenheimer was. So again, just to give that little disclaimer, I'm going to talk about 10 movies. I would love to have 10 clips to go along with 10 movies. But if I can't, and by the time you watch this video, if you see that some of them only have still images or something to correspond with the video, that means that throughout the uploading process, I got flagged somewhere. So yeah, so we'll progress with that. And I just want to explain some potential randomness that goes on with YouTube. YouTube, it's easy, it's user friendly, but it's not user friendly. So, anyway, moving on. Okay, so my top 10 movies that I watched in 2024, beginning with number 10, comes from a film from 1997 called Good Will Hunting.
They were fine. We was gonna close the deal, but then Billy insulted one of them, and the heavyset girl said that I had a receding hairline and I was a few pounds overweight, and I was like, "Go fuck yourself." I swallowed a bug.
You're an idiot.
What?
You're an idiot. I've been sitting over there for 45 minutes waiting for you to come and talk to me. But I'm tired now and I have to go home. And I couldn't sit there anymore waiting for you.
Well, I'm well.
Skylar.
Skylar.
Oh, and by the way, that guy over there, Michael Bolton clone. Wasn't seen with us, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I kind of got that impression.
Okay, well, I've got to go. Gotta get up early and waste some more money on my overpriced education.
No, I didn't mean you.
That's all right. There's my number. So maybe we can go out for coffee sometime.
All right, yeah. Maybe we could just get together and eat a bunch of caramels.
What do you mean?
When you think about it, it's as arbitrary as drinking coffee.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right then.
Hey, see those them fucking Barneys right now. Hey, wait, hold on. Skiing trip. I should have beat that old bitch's ass. Do you like apples?
Yeah.
Well, I got a number. How do you like them apples?
And if you're not familiar with this movie, this is perhaps the greatest film about friendship I've ever seen. I think it's incredibly touching, incredibly moving. and is very real, very relatable, and is quite accurate in how friendships, specifically male friendships, how boys bond. And this was written by uh, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon when they were really young. They were like 18, 20 tops, something like that. They write this film, they sell it, they make it, they star in it, and they end up getting Oscars for it. And this is like one of the first things they ever did. But it's very tender, it's very touching. If you've ever been in a friendship where you can feel that you guys are going different ways in your life, and not like you guys are having a falling out, you guys are splitting or anything, but just like, hey, I'm going to college while my friend is just going to continue working. If you've ever been through that, I recommend this film. It's funny, it's touching, it's moving, it's dramatic. It might bring a tear to your eye. It brought a tear to my eye because while I was watching it, I was thinking about my friends and how they relate to me in my life and how I relate to them in theirs. And I can't give higher praise to a movie other than that. The fact that it made me want to think about my own life and people in my life. Um, and I was very happy with that. And I liked the movie so much that shortly after I watched, I went out and I bought the Blu-ray of it, and so now I have it for forever. So I'm very thankful for Good Will Hunting, and again, it's a testament that anyone from anywhere can be creators, no matter if you have a name or not, how old you are or not. This was made by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon when they were just two young kids who had a dream, dang it. They went on to win awards, make all the money, and now their careers are ripping and roaring. So there's that. Okay, moving on. The number 9 spot of my top 10 films from 2024 uh, belong belongs to the 1996 film. So just 1 year prior, belongs to the 1996 film The Long Kiss Goodnight.
I'm not drunk. Yeah, prove it to you. Hey. Hey, come on.
Hey, stop that!
I'm sorry.
And this movie was a lot of fun to rediscover. I remember watching this when I was actually quite young, but it's a great example of female heroes. You look at James Cameron, who does stuff with Ripley and with Avatar and the Terminator, and he's known for really carving out these great heroine heroes. Um, you know, and he's kind of just known for that. And it's true; those films are all tremendous. But this one is also really great, really a lot of fun. Has good action. Has Samuel L. Jackson, playing the support to our main girl here. Um, and it was just a lot of fun. Sorry if I'm kind of rambling here. I'm going through my notes here while I'm talking. But yeah, The Long Kiss Goodnight, really good movie. Really enjoyed it. There's a lot of practical effects in this that I frankly just don't know how they pulled off. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I recommend that one highly. Again, The Long Kiss Goodnight from 1996. Okay, moving on. The number 8 spot is a movie from 2016, which is my favorite war movie of all time, and that is Hacksaw Ridge.
What the hell is your delay, Captain?
We're waiting, sir.
Waiting for what?
Private Doss.
Who the hell is Private Doss?
I always dreamed about being a doctor, but didn't get much school. I can't stay here while all them go fight for me.
But you figure this war is just going to fit in with your ideas?
While everybody else is taking life, I'm gonna be saving it. And that's gonna be my way to serve.
This is a personal gift from the United States government designed to bring death to the enemy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sergeant. I can't touch a gun.
You don't kill.
No, sir.
You know, quite a bit of killing does occur in war.
Private Doss does not believe in violence. Do not look to him to save you on the battlefield.
I don't think this is a question of religion. I think this is cowardice.
I fell in love with you because you weren't like anyone else. You're saying you could go to prison.
But I don't know how I'm gonna live with myself if I don't stay true to what I believe. With the world so set on tearing itself apart, doesn't seem like such a bad thing to me to want to put a little bit of it back together.
Private Doss, you are free to run into the hellfire of battle without a single weapon to protect yourself.
And if you have not seen Hacksaw Ridge, boy, do I recommend this. I can't recommend it enough. As I said, it's my favorite war movie. I like this more than Saving Private Ryan because honestly, I feel that this movie is my Saving Private Ryan. I wasn't, there in the theaters getting to see Private Ryan on the big screens. I wasn't there for its initial release. I was there for Hacksaw Ridge, and I remember seeing this in the theater. And myself and others cried during this film because the way they convey war and faith and humanity is so raw, so moving, and it's not played up for, it's not this big explosion action fest. It's a very real, very personal story, and I'll give you the elevator pitch for Hacksaw Ridge. This is a true story based off a real person named Desmond Doss, who wanted to serve in the U.S. military during World War II, but he was a conscientious objector, and due to his strong faith in the Lord, he believed that one human being should not take another human being's life, so he wasn't going to do any killing, nor would he even go so far as to he wouldn't even carry a weapon into combat. And so he got trained to be a medic and had no weaponry on him. He wasn't fighting the enemy. He was trying to save people and even save some of the enemy at points because he just saw a life as a life. And so throughout the film, you see him save U.S. soldiers, but also Japanese soldiers as well. And it's a tremendous movie. It has to deal with him getting persecuted and bullied for his faith, and he's called a coward because he won't, quote unquote, fight for the soldiers around him. And the whole time he sticks to his conviction. And then he gets allowed to go into combat without any weaponry at all, just be a medic. And he's out there on the front lines, and then the combat happens. And again, it's not meant to be just pure entertainment. It's meant to show the horrificness of war and what people have to go through. Is it entertaining? Yes, but I think it's meant to show the tragedy of war, not the, quote, awesomeness of war. And so if you haven't seen Hacksaw Ridge, and if you're someone who is a man of faith like myself and who loves history like myself, I can't recommend this one enough. So yeah, that's number 8 there. Okay, moving on to number 7. That comes from the first film from this year, which is Dune Part 2. And as I mentioned in the last week's episode, I love Dune. I love this movie. I think this is tremendous. I found Dune very late in life. My friends showed it to me on a whim because they described it as a combination of you know, well, no, what did they say? It wasn't Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. It was sci-fi as Lord of the Rings, something like that. Where they Lord of the Rings is this grand, epic, enthralling universe, and they said Dune does this, but for sci-fi, whereas Lord of the Rings does it for sword and sandals. Dune does it for sci-fi, and boy, were they right. I was slack-jawed watching the first Dune movie, and that movie changed my life. It really did. And then Dune Part 2 came out this year, or last year, 2024, excuse me. And I thought that was just tremendous. I saw it 4 times in the theater. I think it's a technical marvel. I think it is epic. It's got great action. It's got great sets, great dialogue. It's based off of a tremendous book. The book is freaking huge. It's thick. I'm looking at it right now on my shelf. I'm still working through it, and I've been working through that book for, gosh, over a year now. And I don't mean this in such a stupid way, but I think the book almost reads like scripture, whereas like when you read the Bible, you actually have to like you can't have your phone out, you can't have your TV on, you can't have any distractions. You have to focus on this. You have to read it slowly. You have to digest the words coming off the page. Dune is no different. When I decide to read Dune, whether it's a chapter, 2 chapters, doesn't matter. It's like, okay, lights off, phone off, going slowly. I'm going to reread what I just read and make sure it's all correct. And it's incredible science fiction. And it made for one incredible movie. And I can't wait for part 3, which is quote unquote called Dune Messiah. And I just love it. But in the meantime, I could rewatch Dune Part 2 all day long, and I recommend you should too. So, excuse me, I keep burping. Anyway, moving on. So a 10, Good Will Hunting. 9, The Long Kiss Goodnight. 8, Hacksaw Ridge. 7, Dune Part 2. And moving into number 6 is a movie from 1962 called Lawrence of Arabia.
Lawrence, only 2 kinds of creature get fun in the desert. Bedouins and gods, and you're neither. Take it from me. For ordinary men, it's a burning, fiery furnace.
No, Dryden. It's going to be fun.
It is recognized that you have a funny sense of fun.
This is another kind of epic in the sense that it's incredibly enthralling, much like Dune and Lord of the Rings. This is real. This is based off of real history from World War I, and this has to do with Lawrence, T.E., Lieutenant Lawrence, working his way into the theater of World War I that has to do with Turkey, as well as the Persians and all that stuff. Excuse me for not getting the nomenclature correct. I haven't refreshed myself on World War I history in a while, but it's incredible. It deals with this man traversing the desert, putting together these factions to help fight on behalf of on behalf of the UK during World War One, and it's incredible. It's incredible. It's a man out of his own element, learning their language, learning their customs, and though he's sent on a mission to help his own people, he ends up developing relationships with everyone he meets over there in the desert, and it's just incredible. And I can't recommend the film enough. I think it's just amazing. And yes, pardon me for rambling here. I was looking up Lawrence of Arabia to give a better account. Um, but yes, British Lieutenant T.E. Lawrence is sent to Arabia to find Prince Fazl and serve as a liaison between the Arabs and the British in their fight against the Turks. With the aid of native Sharif Allah, Lawrence rebels against the orders of his superior officers and strikes out on a daring camel journey across the harsh desert to attack a well-guarded Turkish outpost. Yes, so it's just incredible. And World War II, it's very flashy. It's more well known, it's more revered. I'd say it gets all the movies, all the TV shows, all the video games. But World War One deserved another look at as well. And yeah, Lawrence of Arabia, just a tremendous movie. Very much a big commitment, a big sit down. It's like nearing 4 hours long, but it actually has a built-in intermission. So if you want to take it in chunks, you can. But I mean, it's gorgeous. This was at the time when everything had to be shot for real. So you have real camels, real desert, real plains, real trains. It's all real, and it's this great war epic and this sense of adventure, and it's tremendous. I'm overdue to get that on DVD at some point, and I will at some point. Okay, moving on. We're going to talk about a movie which did make my top 10 list 2024, and I actually just rewatched it in 2025, so I'll talk about it more a little later. But that is 2017's Baby Driver.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, I got to tell you about the fabulous, most groovy bell bottoms. Bell bottoms.
And yeah, Baby Driver is this incredible heist movie that doesn't necessarily have to do with a lot of bang bang and pew pew, but really, Baby Driver is following the story of the getaway driver of the heists of the bank robbers. He's the getaway driver, and it's colorful, it's bright, it has an incredible soundtrack, a lot of heart to it. We'll talk about that a little more later in the show. But yes, Baby Driver comes in at the number 5 spot. Yes, 10, Good Will Hunting. 9, Kiss Goodnight. 8, Hacksaw. 7, Dune. 6, Lawrence. 5, Baby Driver. Now coming in at number 4 is another movie from 2024, and that is The Wild Robot.
Do you need assistance? regression detected. I see your problem. Processing language.
You need to learn how things work on this island.
Hello.
Goslings in print on the first thing they see. Which would be you?
Here is another now.
I do not have the programming.
No one does. He needs to swim and fly.
Swimming's easy. I can teach him the way my mom taught me. Swim!
Which is an animated film. And I was very late to this film. When I saw it, it had been out for a couple of weeks. I had heard it was tremendous. And I thought, how good can it possibly be? So I went out one late night, and it was me plus another couple in the theater. So it was a total of 3 people. And I cried my eyes out. And I'm sure this couple sitting in the theater was like, why is this solo guy crying in an animated feature? But it's tremendous. It's, first of all, gorgeous. Absolutely jaw-droppingly gorgeous. Everything is hand-drawn. None of this is AI. This is all just incredible. The thing looks like a painting come to life. Then you bring in the emotional elements. And I'm not going to spoil the film because I really think this is one that you and your significant other or you and your parents should sit down and watch, because holy crap, this movie made me think of my mom in such a meaningful way. I'm going to get choked up right now. Where the more I thought about my mom throughout me watching the film, the more I cried, the harder I cried. And I have no shame in that. And I know you're probably thinking, this moron, first of all, it's an animated film. What is he doing? He's an adult doing it. Why is he going by himself? And third, why is he crying? That's just the power of films, man. This is why I love movies so much, is the fact that it can have such this profound experience in someone. And much like how Good Will Hunting made me think of my friends and got me teared up, The Wild Robot made me think of my mom and the struggles that I frankly had to go through when I'm handicapped, when I have cerebral palsy, and how my mom was just a constant source of support. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna tear up right now. I don't want to, so I'm not going to. Dang it. But yeah, I recommend The Wild Robot. Just really, really touching about a mother's love, just making someone persevere despite hardships they might face in life. And it's all animated, and it's wrapped up in this little pretty bow of animals and a robot in the wilderness. But my gosh, if it doesn't speak to us as people, woofda. Okay, I gotta move on before I start crying here. Okay, moving into my top 3 now. And this was hard for me, but yeah, this is my top 3. And number 3 is the best movie I saw last year. It comes from 2020, or the best movie I saw that came out in 2024. I mean, number 3 belongs to a film from 2024, and that is the movie Fly Me to the Moon.
Hey, Joe. Eating cold? Miss, you're on fire.
Very original. No, I do not want to stop, drop, and roll with you.
No, your book is on fire.
Oh my God.
Alcohol and flames, they like each other. Cold days.
Kelly Jones.
Public support for the moon mission is rock bottom.
Every day, something is breaking. And we're dead. Again. Yeah, we're blowing up.
The space program is a bloated mess.
NASA needs a marketing specialist, and you are the very best.
Excuse me? What are you doing here?
I tracked you down because I felt we had a connection.
What?
I'm joking. I work here now to sell the moon.
NASA's not something that you sell with a jingle and a slogan.
When I'm done, those men are going to be bigger than the Beatles.
Who is that?
For me, this is very personal.
He's got my name.
You told me that your guys don't do interviews, so I had to hire new guys.
I'm here for the casting. Who's he?
You're a juicy part.
60 missions in Korea. I flew 52 missions in Korea. I flew 52 missions in Korea. How's that? What?
The whole world will be watching. We can't afford to lose to the Russians. We need to shoot the backup version of the moon landing.
You mean to fake it?
And this is a film that kind of came and went. It's not big. It's actually quite small. It didn't have a lot of fanfare, but boy, does it deserve love. And the elevator pitch for this one is that it's set during the space race, and the U.S. wants a win so badly that they have NASA trying to engineer, the rocket to get humanity to space. But if they can't, they have a backup plan where they're going to film a fake moon landing, which again plays into very real history because some people believe that the moon landing was fake. It wasn't, but whatever. The film was about this. And so the film is set where you have one side of the story about the making of the fake moon landing, and you have the other side of the story talking about the real NASA engineering going on to making the rocket, should they be able to make their timeline on time. You have Channing Tatum playing Mr. NASA engineer, and you have Scarlett Johansson playing the producer who's putting together the fake moon landing. This movie is hilarious, so much fun, laugh out loud funny, not raunchy. It's an adult film, but I will stand by this. I believe this is a film that families can enjoy. If you are a fan of history, this is certainly one to check out. If you are a fan of conspiracy theories, this is certainly one to check out because they don't buttercup it, nor did they overplay one hand versus the other. They give each side their due about, is this real, and what do we do if it's real, versus is this fake, and how do we respond to it if it was faked. It wasn't, but okay. And it's great. I remember when my mom and I saw it, and the credits started to roll. My mom turned to me and she said, "They need to make more movies like that." And I couldn't agree more because again, it's got humor, it's got heart, it's got the history aspect, it's got the conspiracy theory aspect. It's incredibly entertaining. It's called Fly Me to the Moon, and it was made by Apple Films. So if you have Apple TV, you'll be able to get it there, and I believe it's also available on DVD and other places as well. But I really truly recommend it. This is the kind of movie to where if I showed my friends it, and by the time the credits rolled, if they said, "You want to watch that again?" I would be like, "Yes, absolutely. Let's watch it again." And yeah, Fly Me to the Moon, just tremendous, so much fun. Can't recommend it enough. Oh, by the way, it's directed by, oh, what's his name? Don't do this. Not now. What's his name? It's by the guy that did Arrow, as I mentioned previously in Creature Commandos. What's his name? Hold on just a second. I want to figure this out. Yeah, the guy that worked on Arrow. Oh, yes, his name is Greg Berlanti. Yes, the guy that brought us such TV shows as Arrow, Supergirl, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, all set in the DC universe. Greg Berlanti, when he hung up his TV director's cap, he picked up his film directing cap, and he made a tremendous movie called Fly Me to the Moon. And I can't recommend it enough. Okay, so coming in the number 2 spot for my favorite movie from 2024 is a film from 1985, and that is Back to the Future.
Steven Spielberg presents Back to the Future, a Robert Zemeckis film. Marty leads an ordinary life.
No McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of Hill Valley. Well, history is going to change.
And 1985 is not his year. But Dr. Brown is about to change all that.
Are you telling me you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
He's sending Marty 30 years back in time.
It works! It's a flying saucer from outer space!
Now, he's trapped in the past.
It's gotta be a dream.
About to meet
Chocolate.
his future father.
He's a peeping tough.
Wow!
And he's making an impression on his mother.
It's an absolute dream. And he can sleep in my room.
Anything you do could have serious repercussions on future events.
Now, he's got to make his mother and father fall in love.
For crying out loud, I haven't even been born yet.
And only Dr. Brown can help him get back to the future.
Are you telling me that this sucker is nuclear? Precisely.
And I had the privilege I know you guys are going to probably gawk at me when I say this. I had the privilege to experience this film for the first time in a theater last year. Yes, the first time I saw Back to the Future was in the year 2024 during a theatrical re-release. I'm very late to the party. Yes, I am. I knew the references before I knew the movie. DeLorean, Doc, flux capacitor, 88 miles an hour. Doc, do you mean to tell me that I'm late for school? Like I'd heard all of it, but I have never seen the film to have the context for it. So yes, I got to see this for the first time ever in 2024. This movie changed my life. This is another film that is fun for the whole family. It's got a lot of heart, a lot of character, a lot of good laughs, good special effects. It's very genuine in its emotion about a man dealing with familial issues, a man lost out of time. So the premise is that Marty McFly gets sent back in time and all that, and he has to make his parents fall in love again, because when he goes back in time to when his parents are young, his mother ends up falling in love with him, which means that if his mother and father weren't to get together, then Marty McFly wouldn't exist in the first place. I know on paper that sounds terrible because it sounds like this really weird relationship angle, but I'm telling you, it's fun, it's funny, it's lighthearted. It's got great themes about how to treat women, about the importance of family, how to be respectful. The film is just tremendous, and this is a film that, very much like Good Will Hunting, as soon as I finished watching it with my mom and we left the theater, I believe that same day or the following day, I went out and I bought the film on Blu-ray, and it's just tremendous. I love it so much fun. And again, another example of, if I were to watch this with my friends and they turned to me and they said, "You want to watch that again?" I'd be like, "Yep, let's rewind. Let's go back in for another ride." So yeah, Back to the Future, just an incredible movie, and yeah, can't recommend it enough. But though I love Back to the Future as much as I do, that is not the number one movie I saw in 2024. No, kids. For me, my number one film from 2024 was 1980's The Blues Brothers.
You got us into this parking lot, pal. Now you get us out. You want out of this parking lot? Okay.
Would there be anything else?
Yes, do you have a Miss Piggy? Pants and burgers. Yeah, lots of space in this mall. Disco pants and haircuts, yeah. Baby clothes. This place has got everything. New Oldsmobiles are in early this year. Pier 1 Imports.
And this film is bonkers. It is borderline spoof bonkers, and its absurdity and its comedy, its joke to minute ratio is crazy. It's got John Candy in it from Planes and Trains and Automobiles, God rest his soul. Um, it has some of the best practical effects I've like ever seen in terms of driving, car crashes. Um, the music is incredible. The story's fun. It's very like you watch it and you're like, does any of this make sense? But the more you watch it, you're like, it does. But even if it weren't, I still want to watch it because I'm just having such a good time. It's so much funny. It's so much funny. It's so funny and it's so much. I can't speak. Excuse me. It's the alcohol. It's got again. It's borderline spoof in the sense that it just goes bonkers crazy. Like it's got religion in it. It's got Nazis in it. It's got car crashes. It's got cops. It's got all this stuff. It's got a nunnery. I mean, it is just. It's almost like a 2 hour long SNL skit, you know. But again, like the good SNL, not the bad SNL that we have today. I'm talking the good SNL during the Chevy Chase era. You know, it's like that. Um, I recommend it highly. The Blues Brothers, just a tremendous film. I need to get this on Blu-ray at some point because I think it's just that good. And yes, that is my favorite film that I watched in 2024. So just to do a quick recap, from 10 to number 1. Number 10, Good Will Hunting. Number 2, The Long Kiss Goodnight. Number 3, excuse me. Number 10, Good Will Hunting. Number 9, The Long Kiss Goodnight. Number 8, Hacksaw Ridge. Number 7, Dune Part 2. Number 6, Lawrence of Arabia. Number 5, Baby Driver. Number 4, The Wild Robot. Number 3, Fly Me to the Moon. Number 2, Back to the Future. And number 1, The Blues Brothers. Okay, moving on. Now I'm going to talk about Baby Driver a little more properly here because this was a film that I rewatched not long ago in 2025, and I think it's incredible. I think that in the world of heist movies, of car movies, of action movies, this plays almost like not an action comedy, but almost like an action musical. There's not singing, but the soundtrack is such an integral part of its DNA. It fuels the movie and drives it forward, no pun intended. That if you were to strip the music out of the movie, it would lose its identity. It'd become a Walmart $10 bin type movie. Whereas this is expertly crafted. It's got a lot of heart, a lot of humor, a lot of great action, a lot of great driving, and I think it's incredible. Again, it's a film that I just finished watching not long ago with a friend of mine here in 2025, and I'm already thinking about rewatching it. I think it's incredibly influential. I think it stands the test of time as one that will be looked back on when we think about what are some of the better crime movies that were made since maybe Heat in 1995, because I think that's still the gold standard. But this is a movie I could show my friends. This is a movie I could show my mom. This thing is a lot of fun, very approachable, and yeah, I love Baby Driver, and I think it's incredible. There's a reason why I made it so high up on my list in 2024, and there's a reason why when my friend came over and he was like, "Hey, let's watch a movie. You got anything good we can watch?" I was like, "Oh, fam, like." We're gonna watch Baby Driver. Check this out, and I put it in, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I kind of rediscovered it in a way because this was one movie that I watched very early in 2024, and so to get to watch it probably about a full year later, and to just fall back in love with it, I thought it was just tremendous. And so yeah, I recommend Baby Driver from 2017. Just a really really good time at the movies, and yeah, really really recommend that one. And another film I watched that I want to bring up is a movie from 2022 that I think doesn't get a lot of love because I don't think it's really well known. It kind of flew under the radar, much like Fly Me to the Moon, and that is 2022's Ambulance, directed by Michael Bay.
Shit, where did they come from?
And the elevator pitch for this movie is it's also a heist film. It is during a heist, the heist goes wrong, getaway driver gets killed, the majority of the crew get killed, and the remaining bank robbers, what they do is they hijack an ambulance who is on scene to help aid those who got injured during the heist. The criminals hijack the ambulance with a wounded cop in the back, and they use that as their getaway vehicle. So the film Ambulance is one big long car chase where you have the bad guys driving the stolen ambulance and evading the cops, but the cops have to be very particular about how they intervene and try to stop these bad guys, because in the back of the ambulance they have not only a wounded cop, but also the medic who is trying to keep the cop alive while evading traffic and dodging, gunfire and the whole deal. And yeah, the film is incredible. Since its release, I've seen it described as Grand Theft Auto, the movie, like GTA, the video game, the movie, which is very, very true. I think that's very accurate. It's a bit nonsensical. It gets a little overbloated for my taste, but Michael Bay, he's a tremendous filmmaker. Love him or hate him, he has made some incredible movies. Transformers 1 through 5, he did. Bad Boys, Armageddon, The Rock. What else did he do? The Island. I mean, these films are incredible, and so rather than him make this huge, giant spectacle like he's done before, he gets a little bit of money and this ragtag team together and makes this film called Ambulance, which just kind of came and went. But he had access to a special type of camera system connected to a drone, and so he's flying around the film camera via a drone, and he's able to get in real low, real close to the action of the vehicles. I think it's just amazing. If you're a fan of LA, check it out. If you're a fan of heist films, check it out. If you're a fan of Michael Bay, check it out. And yeah, Ambulance, not a film that a lot of people know about, but I think they should. So that's why I'm talking about it here today. I can't recommend that one enough, from 2022. And then also, I've been watching a lot of heist movies lately, because I just realized my last 3 talking points here are heist related, heist film related. Baby Driver, Ambulance, and then I saw 2 other movies earlier this year, and that is Den of Thieves. And yes, I said 2 because Den of Thieves has a sequel out called Den of Thieves 2, Pantera. And Den of Thieves, the first one from 2018, is incredible.
Z, go down the right. Gus, right choke, center with me. Push. Stay in the left. Don't come in. Stay down. Stay down. Get down. Get down.
Down. Sheriff's Department, stay down. Get down, stay by the engine block. Sheriff's Department, lady, get in the car. Oh, shit. Let's go.
Moving.
It's got Gerard Butler, who plays this cop who's after this crew of bank robbers, and he plays this no-nonsense, real get-down-to-business type cop who just kind of floats through life, is a real schmuckety-schmuck, a real smart-ass, pardon the swear there, but that's just how he is, and it's great. This is a film made by people who love crime movies. This plays off of Heat. This plays off of Goodfellas-esque a little bit. This plays off of, let's see, what else? What else does it draw inspiration from? I just watched it, so I should know. And whatever. Anyway, Heat. You can't go wrong with Heat. If you're trying to make a film that's like Heat, you did a pretty good job here. Den of Thieves is a lot of fun. Got great action, really good characters, a lot of great dialogue, very snappy. keeps you on the edge of your seat. I laughed out loud a few times rewatching this film. I really enjoyed this one. This is a great film. People have described it as like a discount to Heat, because Heat, again, is the gold standard for heist movies, for crime movies. And people have said this is like a poor man's Heat, which sounds bad, sounds derogatory, but I assure you it's not. Den of Thieves is a lot of fun. I recommend it highly. It also stars Pablo Schreiber as the main bad guy, and he went on to play Master Chief in the live-action Halo TV show on Paramount Plus, and that show was just okay. But yeah, before he went on to play Master Chief, Mr. Pablo Schreiber went on to play Mr. Bank Robber, and Mr. Merriweather, I think is his name, and he fought off against Gerard Butler in a pretty cool way. And so that is Den of Thieves from 2018. Really enjoy that movie. I love that movie a lot. It's a lot of fun. I recommend it highly. I can't say the same though for its sequel, Den of Thieves 2, Pantera.
Grab a seat. Cracks me up when people pull guns on people. You're not a killer. I am. Word around the LA streets is that they fired your ass. I'm broke. And I'm sick of being a hunter. So your next job, I'm gonna do it with you. Set it up.
Which came out this year, meaning it came out 7 freaking years after its sequel, or after its original, I mean. I saw this movie, and I'll go so far as to say this. I love Den of Thieves from 2018. I hate Den of Thieves 2 from 2025. This movie's terrible. It's terrible. Back up and re-listen to this part of the podcast. Den of Thieves, I said, had great action. Den of Thieves 2 does not. Den of Thieves has great characters. Its sequel does not. The first one has great dialogue. Second one does not. I could just go on and on about how I don't know how this film is meant to be a sequel to its original in 2018 in any way. I think this film is terrible. I was really let down. The film is physically dark. Like Den of Thieves 2 is dark all the time. And so when you have guys doing a heist in the dark in black suits, it's hard to see what's going on. The film is slow, whereas there is fun action and dialogue. There is none of that to be had. This film is slow, boring, monotonous. It is sit down and chit-chat the movie. I really, really did not like this. This was a bad way for me to start the year in terms of films. It wasn't the first film I saw in 2025. That belongs to another movie, which I will eventually do an entire episode on. And it is not La La Land. It's actually a fun segue. I'm glad I brought that up. Thank you, me. Yeah, as I mentioned in previous episodes, a friend of mine brought up how she wanted me to do an in-depth discussion and analysis on the movie La La Land, which I intend to do at some point. And then there's other films that I thought about, well, what's other movies I really want to talk about, really get under the hood on, and not do these many minute long, spiels on them, like with Baby Driver and Den of Thieves. Like, what's a movie I'd want to really dedicate probably like half of an episode of the podcast, if not a whole episode of the podcast to? And I have 3 films in mind. One of them is La La Land, which I intend to do at some point. I just have to finish my research on that film. And then another one is the first film I saw in 2025. That movie also changed my life. And then another one came out a few years ago. Well, no, it came out. It's not been a few. It's been a decade plus. But yeah, I have 3 films that I want to do probably a dedicated full episode on in terms of breakdown. And they're not going to be obvious. They're not going to be the easy ones either. They're not Star Wars. They're not Lord of the Rings. They're not Heat, though. As I say that out loud, that might be what I have to add. They're not The Godfather. They're not Dune. These are movies that I really want to highlight because I think they're that good and I think that they deserve a spotlight on them. And yeah, I have 3 planned right now. One of them is La La Land. But yeah, I don't know how I got off on this little side street here, but yeah, Den of Thieves 2. I'm sorry to have met you. Boy, I was waiting a long, long time for you to show up, and when you do, it was like a wet blanket, you know. So yeah, that's. I wanted the film to end early, you know, like the film is long as crap. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and I was like, look, we're at an hour 35 right now. Can't you just can't the lights just come on now? But no, I had to sit and endure that. So yeah, I love Gerard Butler. It's not his fault. He tried. He did his best, man. He tried. It's just the film just wasn't good. Funny enough, as I mentioned Gerard Butler, I had a dream last night. At the time of this recording, I had a dream last night where Gerard Butler came on my podcast. I probably thought about that because I was so mad about Den of Thieves 2 that it manifested into my dreams. But yeah, Gerard Butler, if you're listening to the show, and I know that you are, if you want to come on the podcast, please don't hesitate to reach out. So yeah, Den of Thieves 1, love you. Gerard Butler, love you. Den of Thieves 2, hate you. You can skip it. And I'm very, very sad to say that. But boy, that was a bad film. Okay, anyway, moving on into the last topic I had for today, getting off of entertainment, getting off of film and TV. I'm going to talk about some real world stuff here. And this has to do with Justin Trudeau officially stepping down from his position in Canada here.
Oh, what's it gonna be?
Oh, come on.
Oh, no, wait. Good luck.
That. More of these flags everywhere, please.
Good luck in 2025, because you're gonna need it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Look nice on my pickup truck.
And the writing was on the wall for this one, I feel, for a couple of years, but this really kind of got sped up once Donald Trump won his presidency, you know, again in 2024, because now there's all this talk about, will Canada join the U.S.? You know, I don't know. Then there's also talk about will Greenland, or is it Iceland? No, it's Greenland, I think. Yeah, will Greenland join the U.S.? I don't know. Those are probably both just memes, but I hear that there's real talk about that. But anyway, yeah, Justin Trudeau has officially stepped down from his position in Canada here, and he does so with quite the interesting resume, with quite the interesting set of accolades for him to carry out in his cardboard box here. He does so with a 73% disapproval rating. When his finance minister resigned in a resignation letter, she said that she was tired of Trudeau's, quote, costly political gimmicks. These gimmicks in question include 4.5 billion with an alien, and spending to give out free money to people who earn under a certain threshold for income. That would raise inflation. Boy, we know a little bit about that here in the U.S., don't we? Then there's all the immigration, which resulted in over 1 million new immigrants coming into Canada in 2022 alone. And from 2014 to 2022, violent crime went up 50% nationwide in Canada. There's also his mishandling of COVID policies. And to top it all off, there was a rise in, quote, assisted suicides across its population under the moniker of healthcare. Yes, in Canada, you could, quote unquote, provide healthcare by helping someone commit suicide with assisted suicide and all that good jazz. So yeah, the world's changing. Whereas one leader steps up in terms of the U.S., another steps down for Canada. You know, and I like Canada. I do. I've been there. I enjoy playing tourist there. You got good chips, you got good syrup, you got good hockey. But yeah, it sounds like they're in need of new leadership there, really top down. It's about time they should gut that place. So who knows what's going to happen with that country? I don't know. Will it become part of the U.S.? No. But if you asked me that like 2 years ago, I'd be like, that's like a 0% chance. Now I think there's like 7% chance. So, you know, what an interesting time we live in. But yes, Justin Trudeau has officially stepped down. And yeah, he certainly needs some good luck going into the new year here. What a way to start off the new year. But yeah, he can go. Oh, just dropped something. He can go and continue to be a handsome jackass somewhere else. So sorry for the swear, but yeah, it's kind of what he was known for, being handsome and also being a jackass. But I shouldn't disparage that too much because honestly, that's not a bad title to have, if I'm being honest. If my friends met someone new and they were like, "Hey, you know that James guy, right? Like, tell me about him. What's he like? Let me learn a little bit about him." And if my friends went, "Oh, James," and they shrug and they go, "Well, he's a handsome jackass," that would be all right by me. But yeah, anyway, that is my show for this week, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say thank you again to all who listen, who continue to check it out, to continue to tune in. It's been a lot of fun for me. I hope it's been a lot of fun for you. And I will see you in the next one. All right, stay frosty. Have a good one. Bye bye.